Are we on? Live?
She threw it down on us.
Okay. I'd like to call the meeting to order. This is actually a council workshop, and it is August 31st at 6 p.m. I believe we're right on time. Okay, and we do have a full quorum. And first item on the agenda is the budget workshop on proposed fiscal year 2022 budget and possible tax exemptions. Okay, I have passed out a spreadsheet with figures. What I did was, everybody got the figures from the net, right? The no new revenue tax rate and the
Yes.
what she sent was the no new revenue tax rate was 62.56 cents, and the what do you call it? The rollback. I'm missing terminology here. Is 65.8. That's a voter approval rate, is what they call it. And we always base our figures on, we have in the past 89%. This year it looks like our collection rate is better, so we went ahead and went with a 90% collection rate. And so if you'll notice the figures on your income figures, at the top of the page it says proposed point is 0.6256 and proposed 0.658, and there's the income figures under that, and I don't.
Okay.
Yeah. Your column heading should have been clearer. They're kind of hard to understand. But anyway, and I think maybe what we need to do is look at our expenses that we went over, and then look at our income. I mean, and see why I'm looking at what I'm looking at as far as what we need to do for next year. So let's look at expenses beginning with operations. Now this has been really extremely difficult for us this year because it's hard to do a comparison when we have such a different system as far as accounting is concerned. Tommy and I sat down and went over line item by line item with CD, and we had him going crazy for a day and a half. And we still missed some things. But anyway, if you look down below there, the expenses were on that first page. It says operations. We had not had any line item in the past for the OSSF fee. That's why we're putting $110 on there, and I put plus $110 as far as budget expense because we didn't have that in our budget expense last year. So it would be over and above what we had last year. Election expense.
So what exactly is that for? Is that for the fees or the?
Yes. When we get a permit application, then there's this certain fee that has to go to TCEQ. And it's a minimal thing, but.
Oh, it's a small amount.
Right.
And so $110 doesn't seem like much.
And we looked at how
Okay.
many permits we figured we would be generating next year. We've had a lot this year.
Okay.
And so we figured the fees for those would be $110. It's a minimal amount, but you have to put it there somewhere.
Sure, I got it.
Okay.
Mayor, are we going up working on the working copy right now, or the
working copy where I have also the pluses
got it?
and minuses.
Okay, thank you. Just confirming.
This is most current. Okay. And then the next line item is election expense. Last year we expensed $3,500. It went over that by some amount. I'm not sure exactly what. I was looking at the July figures. But this year we are we are going to have an election in November because we do have 4 people running for council instead of 3. And this year, it's only going to be divided by one other entity. Last year, there were, you know, in the election cost is divided amongst the entities, and we only have 2 this year, Commonweal and us, right, or Chester and us, I can't remember. And so all the election expenses are only going to be divided by 2. So I'm figuring that we're liable to go up considerably on our election expense this year. So I went ahead and added $2,000 to that. The accountant, last year we had $16,000 budgeted, and that last year's CD, and keep, you know, correct me if I'm wrong, was last year the accountant included in the audit in this line item? Was it both the accountant and the auditor? That's why we had $16,000 there. This year, the auditor is going to be charging $13,500, and we're separating that out. That's just the auditor. The accountant will come under contracts. But we felt we needed to separate that out. And the reason this is going to be coming, there's an increase of $3,500 for the auditor this coming year because of all the grant stuff that's going on, and it causes the price of the audit to go up. Any questions on that one? So I put down there that basically it's $2,500 less, but actually that's where it gets hairy.
Yeah.
$2,500 less, but that other cost to the accountant is under a different line item.
Okay.
So
Where's that?
it's under contracts. We'll get to it.
Okay.
Then the next one is appraisals. The appraisals we figure are going to be going up about $1,000. So I added, you know, $1,000 to that. Tax collection also is going to be going up because it's based on value. Legal filings. This is what we had just as a legal line item. We left that in there with $10,000. Insurance. For some reason, we're really squealing. I don't know. Okay, insurance. I added $5,000 to that. We have additional vehicles that we're going to be insuring and additional people. So it causes the insurance to go up. So I added $5,000 to that, or I should say we, because we all got together and worked on this. Fees and dues will stay the same. You'll notice in red, it's a line item that wasn't on there before. And we have to include lobbying in our budgets anymore. It's required because there's a new law. And you'll notice in the income side, I put 0 for income, and on the expense side, I put 0 for expense, but you have to add it. And I also put it in red so that the accountant will look at it and make sure that she adds that line item in our expense form in the future. Okay. So that was the total for operations. Now we're going down to administration. Last year we had budgeted $12,000 for new computer system, and this year the computers we're going to have to replace at least one computer, and the software for iWorks is $4,000. So the expense this year is actually, if you look at the $12,000 we had last year and the $4,000 plus the $2,000 this year, it's actually a minus $6,000. Mm-hmm. Consumables, we reduced by $500. Copier printer, we added $500 to that because looking at expenses this year, we are seeing an increase in that area. Postage, we reduced. Contingency miscellaneous, that was $8,000, and we budgeted $2,000 for next year, and so that's reduced by $6,000. Now, contingency miscellaneous had been broken down in this new system, and it's itemized differently. So, again, it's kind of like that other thing before. It showed $8,000 as, yeah. Shows up somewhere else. And I'm just kind of trying to give you a, you know, plus and minus where I'm increasing or decreasing. Public notices, we had budgeted 2,500. We're putting that up to 500, another $500 because of all the grant stuff. We're going to have to have more public notices for workers and whatever.
I'm sorry, which line is that?
Public notice, that's 6.
Okay, got it.
Okay. So then this is just a subtotal of office general. And then personnel for administration. Contracts, okay, floodplain administrator, that had not been a line item, but we do need to add it as a line item, and Joe is currently our floodplain manager, and he won't charge anything, so it's 0 on there. But it does have to be a line item. Website, $2,000, and I'm not sure how we came to the $2,000. That's Lisa?
Is it a monthly fee?
That's our monthly charge for the contract that we have with Lisa, and it also covers our website hosting, the fees that we have under that, the .texas.gov domain, and the other charges that we have involved with hosting that website.
Yeah, because I knew it wasn't just Lisa, because they wouldn't have come to $2,000. Lisa's our webmaster, by the way. Okay, city attorney is $3,000. This is under contracts. OSSF inspections, $3,750. And this, again, was broken down differently last year. So, or I don't even know if we didn't have OSSF inspections line item. So this is
What did we pay attorney last year?
the same amount. It hasn't changed. Well, actually, it has changed somewhat. Our meetings began to get really, really long, and so he said instead of, what do you call it, set fee for meetings, he asked for an hourly rate. But it actually comes out to about the same. And now that our meetings have been more streamlined, we're actually he's making less. But anyway.
Be careful what you wish for.
Yeah, exactly. Well, we had crazy long meetings. That some of them were over 3 hours, and it's like he says, I get home at 9, 10 o'clock, 10 o'clock at night. Anyway, lease. I put $1,500 in there. That's the $125 a month for the substation, multiplied, by 12. And that was something we didn't have last year. So these are all new items. Alarm system, $520. Accountant, okay, see, this is where it was broken out from, last year we had the accountant and the auditor all glopped into one, and here it's listed separately, and it's $6,200. So total contracts is $16,970 as opposed to the amount that we had last year was $5,500. So our contracts have increased to $11,470. But again, we moved things around. The accountant was under contracts before, so it's. Does that make sense to everybody?
Pretty much the same.
It's pretty much the same, only it's under a different category. So, and by the way, what we're working on too is setting up all of this so that it'll make more sense when we get our statements every month. This is kind of the way we hope it's going to look. So we're going to have some major juggling on the actual look of the thing. Thank you, CD. Okay, under payroll expenses, council and has been $2,500. Those, we get $10 a meeting, or for council, or 15 from myself. And we have, well, I guess Rusty had been included in that, but I put him on a different line item. Anyway, supervisor of dams, I put $120 because it's $10 a month. City administrator is the same. There is no increase on that line item. But vehicle and travel reimbursement, we increased $100 a month, so that brings that up to $8,400 as opposed to $7,200, so that's a $1,200 increase. Clerical assist.
And that's for whose vehicles?
It's CD's. It's his vehicle reimbursement. Clerical assistant / code enforcement, that's Missy. We increased her by 50 cents an hour, I think it was. Oh, that's right. Clerical assistant. Woo. There was an increase of 1,000. I can talk. I shouldn't talk about people. You were the one that asked about the person before. But that's true. I get you. Part-time clerk. Okay, what we're anticipating is an awful lot of additional work needed because of again, the grants that we're going to be doing. There's a lot of calculating and figuring that has to be submitted. Even though we have a grant administrator, somebody has to keep track of all the expenses, and so Missy is really on overload. So we're thinking that we need another person at the window to be able to handle, people coming in, applying for permits, and whatever people come to, because every time somebody comes in and starts talking to Missy, it takes, 20 minutes of her time, and there just isn't enough time to be able to do everything that needs to be done. So what I figured was I calculated that at $12 an hour for 10 to 5. That's when the doors, and not on Saturdays, just on Tuesday through Friday. So that's 28 hours at $12 an hour. And I have been including the tax in this, the 6% in all of my figures. So figuring the part-time clerk would be $18,520. So that puts the total payroll expense at $105,830. Training, we had budgeted last year $8,000 for training / and mileage. It was $8,000 for the two of them. And what we're doing is we're dividing up the training between the 3 departments, and we're allowing $2,000 for each department. So right now that shows a decrease of $6,000, but it'll show up in the increase, or $4,000 of that will show up under the municipal court and law enforcement. They all have to have CEUs, so they have to go to trainings, and so we allotted $2,000 for each of those departments. Public Works Department. I messed up my. I don't have the comparison figures on this one. I had to change page 3. Okay, Public Works. Again, the way it looked last year was we had Public Works maintenance and Public Works labor. And maintenance included the road material, the equipment fuel, the equipment repair, the supplies, the street sign. Everything was all glopped under street maintenance. So now it's broken out, but it's actually about the same as last year, maybe a little bit more. Street signs, we're leaving it the same. Dams, Rusty said $30,000 for next year because there is no major work that needs to be done. So he said that he would reduce his line item to $30,000. Now, street maintenance labor is an increase. You'll see that there about $20,000 increase in that because we're increasing the Public Works Department's salaries, and so that everyone is at the same level of pay except for Michael.
Gently.
I'm sorry. Anyway, the Public Works Department labor goes up about close to a little over 20,000. Marshals Department. This shows a substantial increase from 64,000 to 101,000. What we realize is that we actually definitely need more time for our marshals. That's one thing that everybody's been asking about. We had budgeted 64 hours a week in the past, and we're adding another 16 hours.
Per week?
Yes. So that's another 16 hours for an additional deputy. And we're adding some money for another $7,000 for fuel and for training. Fuel is $5,000 and training $2,000. So it's increasing the budget there by about $36,000. But like I say, that's a real need. Okay, what we missed when we were going over all of this was the line item from code enforcement, and I added that in today. It's like, because I was trying to figure out where my numbers didn't balance from, what we had budgeted last year to what we were budgeting this year. I couldn't find it. I finally figured out code enforcement wasn't included as a line item in here. So I added the code enforcement, but all I did was put $1,200 in there for right now. We'll juggle figures.
I was gonna say, because we've already spent over 2,600.
Yeah, I know.
Okay,
But since I found it an hour ago, this is the
Okay.
best I could do for right now.
okay.
But we figured it out. When Tommy came in, we figured out how it's going to work. But anyway, so code enforcement, I only have $1,200 in there right now, and that's because I spoke to. You look down at magistration under municipal court. We were paying $6,000 a year for magistration, and I asked if that could be reduced, and so we're reducing that to $4,800. And so I took that $1,200 and just put it up there in code enforcement. That's not the final for code enforcement. It's just for what I came up with right now that I could juggle easily. Municipal judge payroll increase. Municipal judge payroll last year with the magistration and the municipal judge was put together. And this year it's separated out, so it actually is going down somewhat because of the $1,200 decrease in the magistration, but there was a little bit of an increase in the municipal judge. Municipal court expense, we've expended, or we've budgeted $5,000 forever for municipal court, and we just continue to do that. Again, training, we added $2,000 for municipal court training because they do have to have CEUs. Building and grounds is basically the same. We reduced it by $500. We reduced the telephone by $500.
Mayor,
Yes, sir.
was there, not to put you on the spot, but is there still any consideration for work on the monuments up front? Or is that something that we're kind of thinking about just working in? I know this is a working copy, and I'm just putting stuff out there for consideration and discussion as we go.
Okay. Well, if we want to, that would probably come under Public Works or building
Building and grounds. That's why I asked about it here.
Let me. I wanted to look at our year-to-date where we are with our building and grounds expense this year. Okay. Okay. Our total expense, okay, we have spent, our total expense, because they added all of it together, was 24.5, and that's basically what we have spent at this point. So we would need to add something to that in order to be able to include the monuments. So let me make note of that. This is a workshop, and I think we're going to need to have another workshop. But This is just, our basic, our groundwork.
So
Okay.
this is talking about the building and grounds?
Mm-hmm.
Do we have any idea what it's gonna cost to, upgrade the monuments?
Well, it's not going to be an upgrade. It'll just be a kind of refurbishing what we've already got, but it'll be sealing cracks and separations in the existing foundation, caulking, restaining, repainting, and cleaning, and just putting it back into a condition that it's because right now they're in need of service so that they don't deteriorate further from the inside out. That's my big concern right now is that they actually.
About 2,500, right?
I think between 1,500 and 2,000 probably would cover it. Maybe even a little bit less. My concern is just that we wait for a couple of years because we don't have the money, and then it's $3,000 to $5,000 because we've got rot and structural damage to it.
Yeah. Yes, that's,
Well, let me ask a question. Couldn't we take that out of capital expenditures? I mean, it's long-term.
I don't know, I don't know that could capital.
We'll knock them down and start over. Oh, well. Okay, thank you, CD.
Yeah, that's pushing.
Okay.
Now,
Good thought.
you'll notice, you'll notice in grant expenses down below, there's $350,000. On income, under grant proceeds, it's $315,000 because this grant has a match. That $350,000 grant that we got, there's a 10% match, so we have $35,000.
And this is the one.
So,
Go ahead, Scott.
so how does this all add up? I mean, of 350,000 and we're matching 35?
Yeah. Now, what Tommy and I were talking about is that match could come out of the bond fund, or, yeah, it's road work. This is road work. The other thing is that oftentimes we do in kind. We do work ourselves that brings the costs down. But I put the whole match in there because income, literally, it would be $315,000. The expense, there is going to be $350,000 expended. Whether we can reduce it by $35,000. We did that when we did Durwood. We reduced the cost of the project considerably by doing in-kind work. Now, that one was just total grant. We had $275,000 to spend. This time they've increased the amount, but they've added a match. But traditionally, what we've done in everything, like we took $18,000 off this Texas Water Development Board project by us removing the old culvert and the bulkheads and everything. That reduced that estimate by $18,000. So I anticipate being able to do the same thing with this grant
For clarification,
match.
Mayor, is this the grant that we're aiming back on 22nd Street?
Yes.
Okay. Well, our guys should be well equipped to be able to take care of some good stuff there.
Oh, yeah.
So we should be able to see
culvert
some
replacement,
yeah.
ditch work. We can see that's stuff that we can do so that really the expense won't be that much. So
But it's got to show up in the budget.
it has to show up in the budget.
Yeah.
And but yeah, in kind that would make, yeah. I don't know how you would do it so it would look any different.
It'd reduce our expenses on the match.
Yeah,
Or whatever.
I mean, it's almost like it
Right.
needs,
That's gonna increase your expenses on the road maintenance.
So an interesting
well,
way to.
Reduce
you know,
But it's gonna reduce your match,
Yeah.
but the cost factor is gonna come out of your road
right.
maintenance fund.
And we've always, and it's happened in the past, and and it was within what we had budgeted for roads.
Well,
You know,
So I
this
guess
year,
you just have to do the math and figure out which one is the most cost-effective.
if we can do $35,000 worth of work for $15,000, then it's
the analysis I mentioned.
It's worth
Exactly.
losing the time
Exactly.
on other projects to make that
Right.
up. Then.
right, and that's what we've done.
Do the math.
Yep. And what we're thinking is, okay, the money that we will be saving by our in-kind work, we can,
They'll be part of 35,000 match.
yeah, that'll be part of the $35,000 match, but also we can use that for code enforcement.
Well, that's true too.
And I don't know how you could juggle that. As far as the budget figures that you have to show.
That
Line
seems
item
like
transfer.
apples and oranges.
Well, yeah, it's a line item transfer in, at the time, you know, but,
It's almost like it needs to have a little bit, another line in there to break out the matching part of it, to
We
kind
Well-
of
don't
help
know-
explain.
We don't know until they start working how much that'll be.
Okay,
until you actually get a contract, you know,
yeah,
you,
okay.
it's really hard to determine what
Moving right
parts
along.
we can do, you know? But we're sure that we can. Reduce it by, if not the whole 35,000, a good amount.
Agreed.
And we still have some money in that bond fund that we could use as our match. So that's another thing that we can think about. Okay.
What's ARPA, ARPA?
American Rescue Plan Act. That's the $355,000 that we're going to get over a 2-year period. We just hired a grant administrator to administrate, a funds administrator to administrate that and administer that money. We get half of it this year and half of it next year. That's why I just put the $177,500 in there as income, and I put $177,000 as expense. Now, we don't know that we'll spend the whole $177,000. What we do have is till December of 2024 to spend that money. But
Hey, if you have any
have to have
trouble,
your
Mayor,
balance.
just give me a
Huh?
call. We will figure out how to make it all work for the city.
Right.
We will put all of that money to work for the city. Promise.
On that subject, Vance is kind of needing the
Too.
Get out the door.
Okay.
my wife's sending me dinner appointments.
Well, I'd like dinner too. I haven't had dinner either. Can we all go? Okay.
Could I asked Vance to come since we were talking about budget and we had mentioned the potential of looking at doing some IT strategy assessment this year. I asked if Vance could spare 3 to 5 minutes just to speak to us at a high level about what that looks like, both from a cost standpoint and from an operational standpoint. Can we carve out a quick minute for him?
I'm
it on
okay
the
with that. Is
agenda?
everybody okay with?
Well, it's a
It's an
budget.
expense item.
Yeah, budget item.
Under that camera, you can see where the camera points. We could get the podium out.
Right here? Right here? All right. Am I too loud? Too loud? There we go. David asked me to put together a sample document of what I've done for previous organizations to help them get a grasp of some of the risks, some of the operational challenges as it pertains to technology. And this is a template that I've developed working with a number of different companies in a variety of different verticals. And it's an amalgamation of 3 or 4 different reports that I put together, but I wanted to make sure that everyone had a kind of a taste of some of the information that would be included in such an assessment. Okay. Hold on. Hang on, podium. If you turn to section 1.
No, it's chapter 1?
It's page 6,
Yeah, chapter 1.
after all the fluff, of course. It's just an executive summary. What I've done is I've preemptively done some work on this project for you guys so that you can understand where I'm going with this type of assessment. So if you look at the first 4 or 5 pages, it is inclusive.
I don't have a copy.
Oh, sorry.
Okay, sorry, Vance.
No worries, no worries. It's inclusive of what I know today without really digging into the operations of the
This
overall.
is all you know today?
This is all I know today.
All right.
So this is kind of inclusive of what I know today for the first 4 or 5 pages of the first section. I haven't really dug into the details of whatnot, but this will give you kind of a basic understanding of the layout of the document. The first section, of course, is the executive summary. Chapter 2 starts at page 9. This outlines projects, goals, and scope of what items will be included in the review and the assessment, and breaking that down into detail. So for network infrastructure, you'd have local area network, wide area network. For service desks, that would include what tool sets are used to service your network. Storage, where do you store your documents? How do you store your documents? Your hardware, communications, those types of things. General core areas of every organization.
So, Vance, for clarification, each of these chapters is an area of assessment in our IT infrastructure that you would go through and evaluate what we've got, gap analysis, and then offer recommendations?
Absolutely.
Okay.
So the assessment methodology breaks everything down into a few simple criteria. If you jump to, we'll go all the way because I don't want to bore you guys too much. Let's see.
Oh, there's,
It starts on page, I believe, 18 for assessment recommendations. The areas that are agreed on as part of the assessment are broken down into categories and itemized out, and then broken out into a table of problem description, why is it a problem, a recommended solution, and then the overall benefits of that recommended solution. These are not concise statements. They are suggestions to be reviewed and discussed and further evaluated for risk against the organization. Once again, this is a sample from other organizations and is not reflective of this organization itself, except for just the first couple of 3 pages of this report. This would include functional understanding of your software licensing, your processes within your office, how you complete different tasks, who's responsible for those roles and organizational responsibilities as it pertains to disaster recovery. If you had a fire in this building, who's responsible for what components of the overall offices? Who's responsible for law enforcement? Who's responsible for the courts? Who's responsible for the city? Who's responsible for contacting the federal government? These types of things are identified and assigned a category for either further investigation or a definitive process to be identified and put into place for the organization. This is just a template to show cause and effect of the various standard things that every organization is challenged with on a day-to-day basis when it pertains to technology, security, and disaster recovery and business continuity.
So your last statement there, I was just about to ask Vance. This does cover in complete detail everything that we need to ensure continuation of functionality and operations into the future, regardless of who's sitting in this room at the end of the conversation, right?
Absolutely. Okay. The gap analysis will identify personnel roles as well. In the event of a loss of personnel, key figure within the organization, there's usually some sort of vacuum, and that gap analysis is very important to a risk assessment as it pertains to technology, and once again, those disaster recovery and business continuity roles. Those roles, if not filled correctly or do not have someone else that understands that particular role, can leave a large gap in the organization's processes, especially in a time of discourse, such as a disaster or a calamic event.
And so what's the general ballpark for an organization to go through this sort of assessment and shakedown of their IT structure?
You know, our standard off-the-book pricing is about 10 grand, but I know this organization already. I've worked with you guys on a lot of different things, and you're a small organization, so $2,500 I think is a good round price based on the information that I already have today and the necessary discovery work that would be required to complete this document in its entirety.
And all that $2,500 would buy us is visibility, understanding, and potentially a roadmap into the future. That doesn't get us going down the pathway. That just says what the journey may look like, correct?
Once key items are identified, we have an executive review before I finalize the document. Once key risk items are identified, I go ahead and create a project plan and a budget, whether it be a 12-month budget or a 36-month budget for those key items so that the organization can, we'll say, digest the more important components that have to be addressed immediately, whether it be cost or process change or personnel change. It lays out a timeline and a cost structure to achieve those goals.
So the cost that you're estimating is just for the plan?
Whichever plan the administrative or executive team decide on. So there'll be a variety of things that are laid out. It's more of a risk assessment, and that gets to the very last 3 or 4 pages in the packet. It's very colorful. It gets past the IT resource model, which no one really wants to talk about because it's super boring.
Well, this just got dropped on us today. We haven't had a chance to look at it.
That's okay. That's okay.
But you also mentioned in there, I was cruising through there, a help desk.
Yes.
Help desk support.
Yes.
Is there cost incurred in that?
Yes. If you choose to go that route, yes.
Okay. So it's kind of an a la carte series of services.
I'm not proposing any services. The service that I'm providing at this point in time is the assessment of the organization. I would propose solutions. The route that the organization takes is up to them. Whether or not they choose my company to move forward with, if they use another company, it's entirely up to the executive team. This just gives you a blueprint and an outline to make a knowledgeable, informed decision on that particular choice. So the last few pages is really a breakdown. It's what I call a pain matrix. And it breaks it into basic categories. And these categories may not necessarily apply to this organization, but I'll just use one as an example. Core server infrastructure. You guys really don't have a server right now, so it's really not applicable today. But why is it a problem? I described why it's a problem for this particular organization, because they don't have a server infrastructure. I described the solution, the recommendation, and the overall benefits. Now, the difference about this document from the previous information that's included in this overall packet is the final column, which is the risk level. It's a 1 through 5 risk level. I go through, and based on my experience,
What page are you on?
this is the very last 3 or 4 pages in the packet.
All the rainbow colors.
Yeah,
The
it's
stuff that's
it's
too
a
small to
colorful
read.
Yeah.
part. Yeah. Sorry, I was trying to get it all on one page. It's an Excel
It didn't
spreadsheet.
work.
The risk level is based on my experience on how high that risk is to the overall organization. It's a 1 through 5, a scale. So if it's a 1 risk, it's critical. If you don't have a backup of your data, that's pretty much the end of the organization if you have some sort of a disaster. So that's a level 1 risk assessment. Your PC's old and you need a new operating system. I'd say that'd be a level 5. You can continue operating. You can continue to get ROI if it's a usable machine and doesn't impact your personnel's productivity. I evaluate certain soft components of IT, such as keystroke efficiency. If you have a machine that's so slow that the full-time employee is 20% slower because they're waiting on the hardware to complete the job, it pays for itself to get that new PC because that FTE is now 20% more effective. Little things like that I evaluate and look at and see if that's going to be a benefit to the organization as well.
So you have a pretty deep view into our operating system and our data collected.
Not as it stands today. I have an understanding of, because I've attended a lot of city hall meetings and some of these budget meetings and whatnot, I have an idea of the overall
I've been
operational.
talking about monitoring keystrokes and the likes.
Not monitoring keystrokes. It's more of a performance of the keystroke. So to give you an example, if I'm an accountant, I get paid by the hour, and I bill that to the client, and it's about keystroke efficiency. If I can take care of a client in 1 hour and charge them for 2 because that's our book of business charge for that, then you're more efficient. If it takes them 3 hours because their computer is slow,
So
then
how would you have visibility of that?
you can generally tell by the application performance how much work is being done by that individual, and then their job role. So you evaluate the job roles, the applications that they're using, the effectiveness of their day-to-day, and make an educated guess. I added a T to that. Make an educated guess, and that's information that you present to the executive team. Now, that executive team is going to have the HR insight and the day-to-day work with that individual or that particular job role to make an educated decision on whether or not, well, it does make sense. We need a little more productivity out of that individual or that job role. That's the executive team's decision to make, but they need that information first to make that decision.
So, like in iWorks, if we've got 3 different people who complete, work packages or a job. Yeah, so if you had 3 different people that all did that same job and one person could close out a ticket in 10 minutes and the other 2 people took 45 minutes or an hour, then that would be an indication of either potentially problem with the hardware or with the training. So we could gain visibility on efficiency across our workforce.
It could also be the complexity of what it is that they're trying to document.
100%.
Absolutely.
100%.
All of these are factors to be reviewed and evaluated before making a decision. It could be, the speed of their internet because they're working on a software as a service application. Something as simple as that. Okay.
All right.
Any questions? Feel free to read the document if you have any further questions. Like I said, this is an amalgamation of about 3 or 4 different clients. I didn't want to give a full blueprint of any one organization, but the first few pages of this document I did begin to customize specifically for you guys. So there is some verbiage in there that is applicable to this organization.
Super. Thank you.
Thank you so much, man.
Appreciate that.
Again, I just wanted to further the conversation because we were working on the workshop to bring in a number to consider for that component of our organization in the next year. So thank you for indulging that particular line item.
So what line item is that?
It would definitely fall under office administration. I would assume we don't actually have.
That's a question for the mayor.
Oh,
Yeah, that's why I was looking at where would we, it would come,
$2,500 additional. That's where we're at.
that's what he just said, that it would be a $2,500 charge.
no, that's
To-
that's not to say that Rarity is our solution. I mean, that's just bringing information to the table to say, these are things that we could consider. This is the type of assessment that's available. Rarity can offer it for that package. Whether we go with Rarity or not, I think that it's something to pursue in the next year due to the volume of projects and revenue that's coming through. So again,
I have a real concern about how deep somebody from outside the city organization can get into our software, into our computer system.
in terms of,
Monitoring keystrokes and the likes.
well, any system administrator will have more or less, I mean, it.
Are we planning on having a systems administrator with a help desk and all of that?
I personally, I come from the corporate world. I know that when I'm doing my job and some pops up with my computer wrong, I don't need to be fiddling with it because I'm not trained on it. I need to be able to call the help desk. They come and manage it. I fill in with whatever work I can, and then I get back on my rig.
That was a $1 billion company.
Yeah, but at the same time, the efficiencies are all the more critical in a small
I'm not
organization.
trying to be difficult.
I understand. No issue whatsoever. Again, continuation of operations and process and how we manage our information is something that I think is critical moving forward. So I
CD,
think
what are
having,
your thoughts on this?
Councilman Blackstone, what I'm seeing coming down from the state and the federal folks, it's going to have to happen. Sooner or later, there's going to be certain requirements. And what we're seeing is the structure of grants now. They're becoming so focused, and the requirements, and that's the reason that the council went forward with getting an administrator for the American Recovery Plan Act funds, because what I'm seeing is just a nightmare for us as a small entity to be able to keep up with all of that.
Okay, thank you very much for that insight.
And I think that that's probably a good idea to have a roadmap of where we are with our technology. But I'd like to have a choice of companies to do that project.
I think we should
Oh,
go out for bid.
absolutely.
I'd like to hear from another company.
I agree.
Might have a different perspective that might be looking into, when we look into where we are, where we need to go and how we get there. Another risk assessment.
I agree completely.
I'm not yay or nay. I just want a choice.
So you're talking about having someone else to do the actual risk assessment?
Or at least have the option to, well, go out for
Have an
bid.
option to choose.
Go out for bid, see what people offer, see what their level of expertise and depth of assessment is, and what their price point is.
CD, would you like to share?
Thank you, Mayor. As a matter of fact, there's a webinar coming up in September. One of our cooperative partnerships that we have arranged, they have already pre-vetted companies that do this. And it would be a simple matter of contacting each of those companies.
Awesome.
And since they're already pre-contracted, we wouldn't have to go through that expense.
The expense of,
The assessment?
No.
Whatever the council wants to move forward, whether taking the information that we've received from Mr. Townsend and going forward with another company, or a total review. They do it
Okay,
all.
I think the question here was what money would we be saving? What would, you said that we wouldn't have to,
Well, again, it's something that Councilman Warren had presented at the council meeting, and we'll need to run it through our grant administrator. But I'm pretty sure, because this is a developing project, and it can be really focused back to trying to recover from the pandemic, that we'll be able to use the American Recovery Plan Act funding on that.
So once we do this assessment, how much money are we going to need to be able to come up to state of the art?
We
If
don't-
that's where we're trying to go.
we
That's
don't
what the
know, that's why
assessment
we
is
need
gonna
an
tell us.
assessment.
Tell us.
Yeah. So,
so you're, okay,
We
CD.
would probably have to put a plan in place, and you may be able to pull it out of the American Relief Funds, out of that one there.
there may be some free money out there too.
That's what we're talking about.
Yeah. Okay.
So,
I'm not against, I mean, I'm ready to, $2,500 is not much money for something like that.
right.
CD, we still gonna have to go out of RFP? Or you get these people that have already been vetted and we just select one?
Yes, sir. We'll just go to, let's see, I believe in this case it's Choice Partners, which is the, or it may be Houston Galveston Area Council. One of those two, but they're both in the Houston area, and they've sent out requests for proposals already. Now, the
Oh, so they-
webinar will cover the information that you're asking me, because this is new territory for me. So we'll
they'll
find out a
pre-
considerable bit here.
So David, what was your objective for today, to get some bullet in the budget for next year?
Yeah, a dialogue that moves this towards
A bu-
an understanding of what we need to be working on in the future. Again,
No, I mean for this budget tonight, you were looking for a bullet for
I think
the money to cover the assessment.
I think that there should be, yes.
Okay.
Whether
Well,
or not-
that's all it is.
Yeah,
Okay.
Yeah, but if we can use the American
was-
Recovery Funds, we
if-
won't
if
need
you're-
to put anything else in the budget.
Sir?
If we can use the recovery funds, we won't have to put anything in the budget.
Okay,
Would
yeah.
that include the assessment? Yeah.
Regardless of who ends up doing the assessment, we've got the money, and that's,
We can use that American fund.
then
Yeah, it sounds like we can use
yeah,
that.
we need to go with that.
I mean, but I think we should have a choice.
Oh, yeah, well, like CD said, there's, different companies that
Yeah,
are
these
already
other
been
companies
vetted.
have already done the work, so it's just a matter of, yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe we should ask Woodville what their contributions they have. And as some different.
They're probably in the same situation we are. They're going to have,
They
they're,
may be- they
yeah,
may-
because it's like CD said, what's happening as things are changing rapidly. So, yeah, we can always ask, but,
Or maybe Jasper, maybe they have a better IT department that we might learn something from.
I want to say that Woodville and the county have largely worked through Donald and Andrew as local contractors, and they've kind of been their go-to that pretty much manage their networks and their infrastructure and their hardware and whatnot. They had somebody that was close to home that could, when they have a problem, they pick up the phone, they call them, and they're there in 5-10 minutes because they're around the block or whatever. But as far as having any corporate or large scale firm managing, I don't think that Woodville or the county have done any of that today.
They may have servers, and they may have.
Oh, they do. In fact, Andrew was setting up point-to-point wireless with laser 4 or 5 years ago. So they've tried some heavy technologies to try and build out their infrastructure and get connectivity right. Hasn't always, worked well, but, growing pains, just like everything.
So are we ready to talk about possible tax exemptions?
okay. I actually contacted David Luther today to ask him if we were still in the time frame to be able to figure that out. And I'm not sure how we would calculate, because what David had told us the other night is, okay, if you allow a certain amount of deductions for like over 65, there's no homestead, and it's too late for a homestead, okay? But if you do, was it $5,000 for the over 65? Then it adds.
You can do as low as $5,000
Right.
reduction in the valuation.
Right. Yeah, for the over 65, and then then it would add a certain amount to.
I want to say that the county offers somewhere around 10 or 11.5 in discount for the over 65.
But with the state, you can offer as little as the $5,000 is.
Right,
minimum.
you can go
Yeah.
lower. I think at that 11.5 or whatever the county currently gives, I think it wound up being around a $17,000 to $18,000 revenue hit for the city, as far as the reduction in revenue from the existing folks that the county is giving an over 65 exemption to. If we gave that same exemption locally at the city level, it would be about an $18,000 reduction in revenue.
Right. And so
Total.
it's a question of the $18,000 in revenue reduction or increasing the tax rate to be able to bring in that $18,000. So it's.
So what are you suggesting?
I'm not making a recommendation. I'm just bringing information to the table because it's been a point of contention for a while that we want to address.
I don't think it's the money as much as it is the principle of the thing.
Doing something.
Yeah, I mean, $5,000 reduction in valuation would not, that is a move in the right direction, and it's not going to be a big hit for the city with regard to tax revenue. You know how many people are in here that are over 65 that own property?
He said 242 people.
Does that count everybody, landowners, homeowners?
I don't know if it includes land.
I don't know if, I don't know about that. That's another wrinkle for the brain.
Well, quick napkin calculation is that an $11,500 break should yield somewhere around a $72 tax break per year.
What would the $5,000 be?
Probably about half of that, 32, 33, 34. So
Dollars per year.
and that's per property owner. So if I own a $100,000 home and I get an $11,500 tax break for being over 65, then I should save somewhere around $72 per year on my city taxes. That's at 0.6256 tax rate.
I don't know why you keep using the 11.5.
It's the reference number that David Luther gave me relative to what the county's given. But at 5.
When he was here, he was throwing those numbers around too, and I made mention to him that $5,000 was something that the state has authorized as well. It's kind of the starting point.
That's true.
Bill from there.
Right.
So are we proposing that we start out at the $5,000 level and to initiate a program for an over 65 exemption?
I think that'd be a smart move on our part, yes.
I would think so too. Either, yeah.
I'm in support.
What I'm going to do is, David responded that he's in Austin right now at a conference, but I would like him to help us with calculation as far as, now that we have definite figures from Lynette and we have a definite
Yeah.
value
Right.
and everything. So
The devil's in the details.
so I will actually get the correct amount to show us exactly what it would, how it would reflect. What I would like to do is, this is our initial, and it's complicated this year because of the change of format and everything. I would like to suggest that we have another workshop
That's where I
so
thought
that you
were
all can
saying that
take
you-
this
yeah.
and you can ask questions and we can come back to the table with more knowledge.
And you'll have the numbers for Mr. Luther by then, probably
Yes,
as well.
absolutely,
And that's going to
absolutely.
be a,
We can have more total package. All right, so the budget figures under proposed .6256. So that's based on that tax rate.
Right.
This budget.
And at 90% collection rate. So we take 90% of that because we've never gotten 100% collection.
Right, so this figure here, these numbers
Right.
on this punch
And you'll
list-
notice that the only difference is the first number on the top.
Right,
And there's a difference of, I can't remember what the difference is.
37.
37.8.
There was 37, yeah, from, and it's a $25,000 difference between one and the other, between the 476 and the 501. You see what I'm talking about? Okay, and that's the only figure that would be different in the income figures. So, any other questions so that when you, and feel free to call so we can talk about stuff, because if you guys come up with questions, I'm sure that it's a good question and we can talk about it.
So if we went with the talking hypothetical here, if we say the tax rate's gonna be .6256,
Mm-hmm.
then with these budget expense items that you have here, we'd have to come up with another $25,000,
Right, right,
or make a cut to
Right.
25,000.
well, yeah, and what I have done,
I'm just making sure I understand.
yeah, and what I have done with this is went ahead and added in the increase in salaries for all of our people, as requested. And so, where we start cutting, it would be a question of, suggestions. Where would we cut?
Quick question, Mayor. Line item 4005.10, FEMA reimbursement, $177,500. Is that a projection of reimbursements that we anticipate or
that's-
that we've already seen
that's-
are on the
that's-
way?
That's the American Rescue Act.
That's the
Oh, that's the American
Sorry,
Rescue.
yeah.
Oh, okay. ARPA.
American Rescue Plan Act.
So,
It should say ARPA.
That's the one that was on the back page.
on top,
Mm-hmm.
1658. How do you come up with that tax rate?
That's the one that Lynette gave us for the, what do you call it? The
Rollback?
rollback rate. You can go up to that
8%.
rate, yeah, and not have,
Not have it look.
right. It doesn't trigger an election.
And then our
And actually, I think,
sticking and interest goes on top of this,
yes.
and that's.
Yes, you did get the figures that Lynette had distributed. Yeah. The interest in sinking was 1.64. 1.64, so you deduct that from the 0.822. Oh, shoot. Sorry, I thought I had the volume off. Okay. All right. Any other questions? Can we look at a time for another workshop or a date?
What's our deadline? September 30th? 28th?
September 29th is when we actually adopt. Hang on, I've gotten 3 phone calls from the same person.
9/29, we adopt.
As the mayor is busy there, here's something to be considerate of. The criteria that the state has, because the office was not open Sunday or yesterday, the proposed budget that you're seeing is being accepted today. The deadline by the state was the 29th, but that being a Sunday, closed, yesterday closed. It'll go in today.
So what are you saying?
Okay, well, there's a clock that starts ticking at that point.
Today?
We have to send the notice of a budget hearing by September the 10th in order to meet the criteria of how many days it has to be publicized for the budget hearing that's scheduled either the 27th or the 28th of the month. We'll be posting the proposed budget on the city's website tomorrow. And then there will be the notice of the tax rate public hearing that'll have to be published on the website by September the 22nd. Our notice for publishing that notice of the tax rate in the paper will have to go to the paper by September the 17th. That's for the tax rate hearing on September the 27th or 28th. And then adopting the budget and the tax rate on September the 29th. So those are our criteria that we are working within here. As you're looking at having another workshop, whatever comes up, we'll need to have it available to post on the proposed budget is going to be going on tomorrow. Finalized budget, or rather the updated budget that'll be considered at the budget hearing, then as soon as the council completes its next workshop.
I guess the question is to you, CD, when should we have the workshop?
Sounds like before the 10th.
Well, that'll be up to the council, but yeah, we'll need to send it to the paper by September the 10th because that includes a cover page that we developed in conjunction with Lynette Cruz.
And that's the revised budget by the 10th?
Yes.
Sounds like maybe next Tuesday? Same time, same channel?
Could we do next Tuesday?
That's my only time.
Okay.
Thank you, CD. Next Tuesday. Thanks, CD.
Yes. So tomorrow
That's
has,
Rosh Hashanah.
we have to put a proposed budget in the paper, or we have to post it tomorrow? We can't do it the 8th? I mean, it has to be, so we'll just go with the proposed, it'll have to be the, at .658, because that's where it's balanced. But that's only proposed.
That's only proposed,
Yeah.
But then
Which
by
is-
the 29th, it has to be finalized. We have to have
Yeah,
tax rate, everything.
adopt, that's the date we adopt.
Okay.
What was last year's rate? 0.75, 76?
I've got that right here. It was, yeah, the .7134, 71.34.
Okay, so we're down by about 6 points, 5 points
Mm-hmm,
with the proposed .658.
yep.
Okay.
Yeah, it would still be reducing the tax rate by close to 6 cents.
Good deal.
Well, what would it be with the interest in sinking? What would the total be at that point?
.822.
So it's still lower than what it is this year,
Oh, yeah,
By 8 cents.
5 cents.
yeah, by 8 cents.
Good deal.
And what's going to happen this year, because land has been reevaluated. And of course, all of us have felt the increase. But you think about all this the vacant lots in Ivanhoe, that a lot of those have been paying, $15 a year in taxes because, they were valued so low.
Yeah.
Now those values have gone up, and so the tax burden is going to be shared by a much greater number of people. The number of people is the same, but those vacant lots are going to be bringing in a lot more money, and so it's going to take the burden off of those of us that have improved property.
As base land values increase, the proportion of tax revenues paid by unimproved landowners increases, and the burden
Yeah.
is shifted off of improved property
Right.
owners.
So this is really a big thing. It's going to take, like David said, a lot of burden off of the homeowner, the ones that have improved property. So we have to think about that too. All right. I appreciate everybody. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
What is this?
Oh, I just in case, I gave you this. This is last year's figures and kind of the way it was itemized last year. I like to be able to compare what, because on this other thing, because of the way it's different. So I just gave you that just as a reference.
It's exactly the same, only different.
Exactly. Anyway, appreciate all of you, and we'll see you next Tuesday, if not before.
What time is our meeting Friday?
I believe it's 9 o'clock.